This angel is worse than Satan, and this is also the angel that was responsible for creating demons. The Book of Enoch describes a group of fallen angels known as the Watchers, and these angels are believed to be some of the first angels that sinned against God. In this video, I will be focusing on the leader of these angels, Samyaza. Samyaza was responsible for corrupting humanity in the worst way imaginable. Samyaza led the 200 Watchers to sin against mankind, and this nearly wiped out humanity completely. Perhaps it would have, if God hadn't intervened. This is how this angel nearly eradicated humanity as a whole. First, Samyaza had lust for human women. However, he was scared to commit such a sin by himself, so he told the 200 Watchers, "I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin." They all answered him and said, "Let us all swear an oath and bind ourselves by mutual imprecation, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing." Then they swore together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. This agreement occurred on Mount Hermon. After the Watchers made this agreement, all hell broke loose. The result of Samyaza and the other Watchers interbreeding with humans were monstrous hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. These hybrids were so evil that they nearly erased humanity completely. The Book of Enoch says, "They became pregnant and bore great giants whose height was 300 cubits. They consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. They began to sin against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, devouring one another's flesh and drinking blood. Their reign began in the days of the righteous patriarch Jared, the father of the prophet Enoch." This incident is also covered in the Bible, which highlights how disastrous this moment was in biblical history. The Bible mentions how there were Nephilim on earth in those days, in the book of Genesis, and also how the sons of God lusted for the daughters of men and created these hybrid beings. The Watcher's name literally translates to the sons of God, so the Bible was referring to these angels in the Book of Giants found at Qumran. Through this forbidden action, Samyaza fathered two half-breed giant sons, Ophi and Had. The Book of Giants is an apocryphal book that expands upon the Genesis narrative of the Hebrew Bible. In a similar manner to the Book of Enoch, references to the giants are found in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, the books of Enoch, Ethiopic, Slavonic, Hebrew, Greek Jubilees, Genesis 3, Baruch, Slavonic, the Damascus document, and Visions in Daniel chapter 7, verse 14. This book tells of the background and fate of these antediluvian giants and their fathers, the Watchers. But let's speak more about Samyaza's direct hybrid children, Oya and Hawa. Enoch was ordered by God to preach repentance to the giants and Watchers so that they would avoid God's wrath and destruction. This act by God alone lets us know how forgiving he truly is in his mercy. God gave Samyaza's giant sons, Oya and Hawa, dreams, and these giants relayed the dreams to the other Nephilim and the Watchers. This assembly of Watcher giant associates were perplexed by the dreams, so they sent a giant named Mahwe to Enoch's abode and to the places of his preaching. Mahwe had been instructed that he must first hear the prophet speak before petitioning him for the oracle. Enoch, in his attempt to intercede on their behalf, provided not only the oracle that the Watchers and giants had requested, but also twin tablets that revealed the full meaning of their dreams and God's future judgment against them. When the Watchers and giants had at last heard heaven's response, many chose, in their transcendent pride and arrogance, rather than to turn from their evil ways, to act in defiance against God. Let's now look at how the leader of the Watchers nearly wiped us out, and how this terrible angel and those in agreement with him were punished by God. After Samyaza and the other Watchers created these creatures, the Watchers also began to teach humans forbidden secrets and knowledge that destroyed humanity. Ultimately, the Watchers' teachings made humans separate from God. These angels taught us things like magic, forbidden arts, and sciences, all of which humanity used to destroy one another. Particularly, Azazel is usually highlighted as the angel who taught the most destructive teachings to humanity. Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth. and the art of working them into bracelets and ornaments. He also taught the use of antimony and the beautifying of the eyelids with all kinds of costly stones and coloring tinctures. Azazel is a chief watcher, directly behind Samyaza. Samyaza taught humans enchantments and root cuttings, essentially teaching humans about magic. The form of magic he taught was most likely dark magic, due to the fact that everything these angels taught humans caused us to walk away from God and destroy one another during this time. Everything on earth was hectic between the angels' hybrid offspring, the fallen angels, and the teachings of the fallen angels, which affected humanity for the worse. The world became much darker, with things such as witchcraft becoming popularized during this time. Also, after that, we can see this kind of magic prominent in places such as ancient Egypt. Priests were the main practitioners of magic in ancient Egypt, where they were seen as guardians of secret knowledge, given by the gods to humanity, to ward off the blows of fate. We can clearly see these so-called gods are just fallen angels being worshipped as the false gods that we were warned about in Exodus chapter 20, verses 3 to 5. In ancient Egypt, the most respected users of magic were the priests, who could read the ancient books of magic, kept in temple and palace libraries. In popular stories, such men were credited with the power to bring wax animals to life or roll back the waters of a lake. But this magic was also used for evil purposes, though magic was mainly used to protect or heal. In ancient Egypt, the Egyptian state also practiced destructive magic. The names of foreign enemies and Egyptian traitors were inscribed on clay pots, tablets, or figurines of bound prisoners. These objects were then burned, broken, or buried in cemeteries in the belief that this would weaken or destroy the enemy. So, this segment just shows us how much this ancient culture was also impacted by the Watcher's teachings, particularly the teachings of Samyaza regarding his enchantments. Samyaza is directly responsible for what we now call the occult world, where magic is practiced among people who study the esoteric significance of our world. These very same teachings are believed to be practiced by those in power, still to this day, to maintain a high position in society, and also to brainwash and deceive the masses so they can maintain their power. A common theme is seen when we begin to look throughout the history of powerful empires. Nearly all of the most renowned leaders of the time practiced or believed in some sort of mysticism for advantages to maintain or gain power. Look at the Egyptian pharaohs, for example. Even in death, magic was used in their ceremony to cross over into the afterlife. All Egyptians expected to need Heka, which is the Egyptian word for magic, to preserve their bodies and souls in the afterlife. Curses threatening to send dangerous animals to hunt down tomb robbers were sometimes inscribed on tomb walls. The mummified body itself was protected by amulets, hidden beneath its wrappings. Collections of fairy spells, such as the coffin texts in the Book of the Dead, were included in elite burials to provide esoteric magical knowledge. These spells that were taught to humans were not just some folly. At least 13 people who opened the infamous King Tut's tomb mysteriously passed away shortly after, and all of the cultures which practiced magic also have stories similar to that of the Watchers descending down to Earth and manipulating humanity genetically. This story is prominent in ancient Mesopotamia, where deities known as the Anunnaki came down and then manipulated human DNA. However, for this segment, we will particularly focus on the Bible and what it says about this heavenly secret known as magic, which was taught to humanity by the leader of the sons of God, Samyaza. Magic is an ancient practice rooted in rituals, spiritual divinations, and cultural lineage with the intention to invoke, manipulate, and otherwise manifest supernatural forces, beings, or entities in the natural world. But when we ask ourselves how the mere natural humans came into knowledge of this supernatural understanding, it all begins to come together and make one big picture. As we look in the Bible, we see different forms of this practice being used for more positive purposes, such as contacting God. Before Samyaza demonized this practice, Genesis chapter 12, verses 6 to 8 says, "At that time the Canaanites were in the land. The Lord appeared to Abram and said, 'To your offspring I will give this land.' So he built an altar there to the Lord, who had appeared to him. Now, if we look back at the definition of what magic means, we see it means to also manifest supernatural beings into the world. Clearly, this was done in Genesis chapter 12, when Abram summoned God by creating an altar. As we can see, the natural and supernatural were always connected, as God intended it to be. God gave humans a vessel to contain a soul in order to live a life in which we spiritually grow closer to Him, to reach a higher level of existence in the next life. Unfortunately for humans, Samyaza and the other sons of God drastically prevented humans from reaching the supernatural paradise, all due to their greed and fornication. Teachings such as magic separated us from God because it made humans rely on magic instead of God. The things the Watchers taught humans were not initially bad. However, they taught humans how to use them for bad purposes, which led to our demise. But also, it led to the fallen angels and Nephilim's demise. In the end, God made these hybrid creatures and the Watchers wage a civil war upon each other in retaliation for these abominations corrupting the earth. This was a destructive battle that resulted in many of the Nephilim giants being slain. This was the purpose, why God made the civil war happen. Then the Lord ordered Archangel Michael to bind Samyaza and his associates for 70 generations, and after that time was up, they would be cast into hell forever. The final part of God's wrath was the Great Flood. The Great Flood was meant to destroy the remaining remnants of the corrupted genes on the earth. What people don't understand is Noah was spared from the flood because his genetics remained uncorrupted, whilst the rest of the world was affected in some way by the fallen angels' genetic manipulation. Now, remember how I said Samyaza was responsible for creating demons? This is how the creation of demons came about. After Samyaza and his heavenly brothers created the Nephilim giants and God eradicated them, they remain the evil souls of these monstrous beings. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I love hearing from you. Check out more videos on the screen, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.